Today's quilt is a pattern we get asked for a lot. It's super simple and classic, and it's gonna go over some basic quilting techniques. So I'm super excited to bring you this pattern. Let's get started. We're calling this pattern the 9-patch trails. It's a classic combination of 9-patch blocks, rail fence blocks, and in the center we added square and a square blocks for an added extra flair. So the first thing you're going to do is go to fatquartershop.com, search 9-patch trails, and download the completely free pattern. And on page 2 is your fabric requirements. So for your background and inner border, you'll need 2 1/8 yards of a background. I would go with something that is solid. For your 9-patch blocks, you're going to need 5 fat quarters, and what we've done is we have used 5 low volume prints. For your rail fence blocks, you need 4 1/2 yards, and so we did 4 1/2 yards of 4 different blues. For your square and a square block corners, you need 2 fabrics that are 5/8 of a yard, and we picked 2 reds. Then you need 1 5/8 yards for your block centers and outer borders. And then you'll need binding and backing. And so you can see how beautiful this range of fabric is that we came up with. So you've got low volumes, blues, reds. So make sure you start out with a background print that's solid so all of the rest of your fabric prints can really shine against it. And the fabric I just showed you is called Antoinette by French General from Moda Fabrics. So our first step is on page 3, and we're gonna make some 9-patch blocks, which is super easy, but you really wanna just make sure you've got all of your measurements correct. You're gonna start with your 5 low volume prints and your background fabric. And what you're gonna do is cut your fabric, and you should have a fabric B strip, a fabric D strip, and another fabric B strip. And what you'll do is sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam and press according to the pattern. If you press according to the pattern, the entire quilt, all the seams will nest and it'll be really beautiful. So once you sew that together, what I want you to do is measure to make sure everything is correct with your seam allowance. And if you measure the center section from here to here, it should be exactly 2 inches, and it is. And your outside should be exactly 2 1/4, and it is. And it also should be 6 1/2 inches wide, which it is. And it's great if you start this and make sure that your seam allowance is good before you make the entire quilt. Now you're gonna make 2 of these from all 5 prints, which means you're gonna have a total of 10. From each of these, we're gonna subcut these. So the first thing you're gonna do is on one side, align your ruler and trim off to get a straight line, rotate, and you're gonna cut 2 1/2 inch increments. So what I like to do is I'll cut a 5 inch increment and then move to a 2 1/2. Or you can just cut at 2 1/2. From each strip set, you're gonna get 5 outer 9-patch units, 10 from each print, and a total of 50. And then this part right here, you're gonna discard. You could use it for a decorative backing if you wanted to. So make 50 total of the outer 9-patch units. Now for your inner 9-patch unit, we're gonna use that same technique, reversing the fabrics. So you're gonna put your D on the outside, your B on the inside, and another D on the outside. Put those together, use a 1/4 inch seam, and sew those together, and you're gonna make 5 from each print. Since you have 5 prints, that's gonna be 25 total. And then this is what your unit's gonna look like. And again, you're gonna subcut 5 cuts from this. 2 1/2 inches wide. And then again, you're gonna discard this part. And these are gonna be your inner 9-patch units. You're gonna make 5 from each print, and you'll have a total of 25, and then we're gonna put together our inner and our outer units. So from here, you'll take 2 of your outer units, 1 of your inner unit, and if you press according to the arrows in the pattern, all of your seams are gonna nest throughout the entire quilt. What you'll do here is pin these together, sew with a 1/4 inch seam, and this is how your 9-patch looks. It should be exactly 6 1/2 inches square. You're gonna make 5 from each of your prints, and you'll have a total of 25 9-patch blocks. Now for your rail fence block, you're going to use your background and your 4 blue fabrics. And we're going to use that same technique for starting with strip sets. We're going to use fabric E strip, fabric A strip, and a fabric E strip. You're going to sew those together with a 1/4 inch seam, press according to the pattern, and this is what your unit is going to look like. This time it's wider, it's length of fabric. And what you're going to do is on the right side of the fabric, you're going to cut your selvage off and get a straight cut. And you're lining up your ruler with the seam. Now from here, you're going to subcut into 6.5 inch squares. So what's great about this ruler is it's 6.5 inches. So I can just cut and just keep cutting across. Now what I like to do, when I've cut a lot, I just want to make sure when I get to my 4th or 5th strip that I'm still straight. And it looks like maybe I'm a little bit off. So I'm going to just go back over here to the other side, cut a clean cut. When you get to your 4th or 5th block, you're going to want to rotate and cut 2 more 6.5 inch squares. Now when you're done cutting all 5, you're going to have this left over. So just set that aside. It's you're going to discard that or save it for another project. Now you're going to be making 10 from each print, a total of 40, and these are your rail fence blocks. So now we're going to make our square and a square block, and this is the harder part. So like I was saying in the beginning, if this is too difficult for you, you could just cut a 6.5 inch square out of a red or a white and not add anything to it, just make it a little bit more simple. But I'm going to give you 2 options. When you're working with your square and a square, your inside is going to be a white, and then you're going to make 2 different colors of red. So you're going to cut a fabric G square and 4 fabric F squares for each square and a square unit. So you're going to take 2 3.5 inch squares and put them on opposing corners, stitch directly on that line, trim a 1/4 inch away, and press. And it will look like this. Then you're going to add your remaining squares to the remaining corners and press, and your unit will look like this. You're going to make 8 from each red print. You could use this, or you could just use a plain 6.5 inch square. Another option is to use the It's So Emma 6 inch finished square and a square paper. It uses a little bit less fabric, and to make this method, you would follow your cutting instructions on the back side of the front cover, and you'll get really accurate results. So you can do one of those 3 methods, and now we can put our quilt together. Now for row assembly, you're going to do 2 different rows. Your 9-patch row is right here, and that consists of 5 9-patches and 4 rail fence. And what you want to do is look at this and alternate all your fabric so it ends up looking scrappy. You're going to make a total of 5 9-patch rows. For your rail fence rows, you're going to be alternating rail fence blocks that are turned the other direction and a square and a square block. And again, you're going to alternate your reds and your blues, and you're going to do 5 rail fence blocks, 4 square and a square blocks, and you're going to make 4. And then if you pay attention to the arrows in the instructions, when you put together all your rows, every one of these seams will nest, and it's going to come together really nice, which is great for beginners. Then what you're going to do is put all those rows together, and your quilt center should be square at 54.5 inches square. Then you're going to add an inner border with your background, and then an outer border with the same fabric that was used in the center of your square and a square blocks. And when we quilted this quilt, we used a cream thread to match the background color of the French General fabric. And the pantograph is a dense swirls and feathers. And we picked that design just because it's very traditional and it kind of goes with the movement of the fabrics. We hope you enjoyed this super easy pattern. It uses 9-patch blocks, square and a square blocks, and rail fence blocks. And if you have a friend that's looking to learn quilting, this would be a great video to refer them to. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for lots of free videos, free patterns, and our weekly live streams. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.